Hello and welcome back.
I want to ask you honestly, how have you been holding up this week? This preparation asks so much of you, and I know there is real excitement in getting closer to the examination, sitting right next to the quiet, grinding pressure of knowing how much syllabus still waits. This is the Sociology Desk, issue 67. Today we are taking two real events from the last few days and turning each one into a mains answer you could actually write under exam conditions. Stay with me, because the way you sync a headline with the right thinker and the right concept is exactly what separates a candidate who scores well in Sociology Optional from one who does not. Let us start with the story that dominated headlines this month. After weeks of student protest over leaked examination papers, led by a youth formation calling itself the Cockroach Janta Party, and after a 26-day hunger strike by the Ladakh activist Sonam Wangchuk, India's Union Education Minister resigned. Now, if you read this only as a political story, you have missed the answer sitting inside it. For your sociology optional, this is a politics and society question about protest, agitation, and collective action. And it is asking you to explain how power actually changes hands in a democracy. Here is the first concept you must anchor this to. The Italian thinker Vilfredo Pareto argued that governing elites are never permanent. A ruling group stays in power only as long as it can manage a mix of force and persuasion, what Pareto called residues. The moment that mix fails, the elite is circulated out, and a new elite or a new pressure group takes its place. Think about what happened here. The minister did not lose an election. He was pushed out by sustained street pressure. That is Pareto's circulation of elites happening in front of you in real time in 2026. Now, you may be wondering, how do I bring in a second thinker without the answer feeling like a list of names? Here is how. C. Wright Mills gave us the idea of the sociological imagination, the ability to connect a private trouble to a public issue. Individual student suicides after the paper leak were, on their own, private tragedies. The protest movement converted them into one public issue: the accountability of India's examination system. That translation from one person's grief to a structural demand is exactly what Mills asked sociologists to notice. Naming that translation in those words is what makes your answer sound like sociology and not like current affairs. Let us fix Pareto in your memory properly. Vilfredo Pareto, in his work The Mind and Society, argued that history is in large part the graveyard of aristocracies, because every ruling elite eventually exhausts the residues that once secured its authority. Write that formulation down. If you can reproduce a version of that line in your answer sheet and attribute it correctly to Pareto, you have already signaled to the examiner that you know where this concept comes from, and that is worth real marks. Let me put on the examiner's hat for a moment, because this is the most important slide in today's video. Picture two answer scripts on this same question. The average script, the one that gets around 14 out of 20, will describe the protest in detail. The paper leak, the hunger strike, the resignation, almost like a newspaper report. The topper's script, the one that gets 18 or 19 out of 20, opens differently. It opens with the structural claim that ruling elites persist only as long as they manage consent, and only then brings in the minister's resignation in just one or two sentences as evidence. Do you see the difference? The event is not your topic. The event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. A high-scoring answer also brings in a second thinker, Mills here, to deepen the explanation. and it closes by naming a counter view or an Indian extension. For instance, MSA Rao's point that such movements function outside formal party structures. That structure, claim, evidence, second thinker, synthesis, is what lifts a script from the middle of the pack into the top band. Here is a question to practice from today's brief. In the light of the resignation of a Union Cabinet Minister following sustained street mobilization in 2026, critically examine Pareto's theory of the circulation of elites as an explanation of political change in contemporary India. Give yourself 25 minutes and remember, open with the theory, not the news. The second story is harder, but it is exactly the kind of question UPSC has been asking more and more. During the same protests, a female student alleged that police threatened to strip and beat her inside a Delhi station. Around the same time, a 14-year-old Dalit content creator who had simply voiced support for the protesters received coordinated rape threats online. 2 incidents, one physical, one digital. And your task in the exam is to show they are not separate news items, but one single sociological pattern. The first concept here comes from Veena Das. Das argued that extreme violence against vulnerable groups is often not an aberration from normal life. It is something that comes to inhabit the ordinary, routine functioning of institutions and relationships. That is a sophisticated claim, so let me make it concrete. Both the custodial threat and the online rape threat were not one-off shocks. They were routine, recognizable responses to a woman becoming visible through political dissent. If you write that these are exceptions, you will lose marks. If you write, using Das's own framing, that this violence is ordinary and recurring, you are using the concept correctly. Now bring in Michel Foucault. Foucault argued that modern power works less through spectacular punishment and more through the constant production of docile, self-regulating bodies. Notice how precisely this fits both incidents. The threat of a strip search inside a police station and a coordinated rape threat inside a smartphone feed are both attempts to make a politically active woman's body compliant. One works through the police station, the other through the diffuse, informal machinery of online harassment. Naming both as expressions of the same disciplinary logic is what turns 2 news items into one theoretical argument. And add Gail Omved's point on Dalit women facing a doubled burden of caste and patriarchy together, and your answer gains a further layer of precision. Fix this formulation in your memory. Veena Das, in her work Life and Words, argued that violence is often not an aberration from the ordinary, but something that comes to inhabit ordinary relationships and institutions. Notice that Das is deliberately moving away from treating violence as a single dramatic event. That anti-event framing is precisely what a sharp examiner is looking for, because it shows you understand Das's actual intervention, not just a general idea of gendered violence. Let us do the examiner contrast again, because this habit will serve you in every single question you attempt. A script scoring around 14 out of 20 will describe the custodial incident, then describe the online threats as 2 separate examples of violence against women, and stop there. A script scoring 18 or 19 out of 20 will open by asserting that gendered violence is continuous with the ordinary functioning of institutions. Use Das to name that mechanism. Use Foucault's docile bodies to show the custodial and the digital sites share one disciplinary aim. Bring in Omvet for the caste dimension, and close by arguing that as protest becomes more digital, the disciplining of women's dissent has simply migrated across sites without changing its underlying logic. That closing synthesis line, connecting the specific event back to a general sociological claim, is very often the single sentence that separates a good script from a script the examiner remembers. Here is your second practice question. With reference to recent incidents of custodial and online gendered violence against women protesters in India, critically examine Foucault's concept of disciplinary power as a tool for understanding the control of women's political visibility. Again, 25 minutes and open with the theory. Before we close, let us revise fast. 1. Pareto's circulation of elites explains why the minister's resignation was not an accident, but a structural replacement of a ruling group that had lost its grip on consent. 2. Mills's sociological imagination is your tool for showing how private tragedy becomes public issue. 3. Veena Das teaches you to treat gendered violence as ordinary and recurring, not as an exception. 4. Foucault's docile bodies lets you connect a police station threat and an online rape threat as one disciplinary logic. And through all of it, remember the one rule that decides your marks. The current event is only ever your evidence. The theory is always your destination. That is today's session. I know this preparation is long, and some days it will drain you more than it encourages you. But the candidates who keep showing up day after day to practice exactly this kind of linking of theory and event are the ones who eventually pull ahead on results day. If you would like the complete answer blocks, the model answers, and the quotation arsenal behind everything discussed today, drop your email in the comments or write to us at team@upscdesk.com, and our team will share the subscription details. Take care of yourself today, and I will see you in the next issue.